Hello, this is Jim with Pivital. I'm going to introduce you to the physical site survey tool. First of all, you're going to go to this address right here. I've got it on the screen. Um, what you're going to see when you open that up is this right here. So if you've got a new site, then what you're going to do is you're going to create a site with the tool. So just for test purposes, we're just going to call this Gym Test. But you would put in whatever your work order says this is. And we're going to create new site. Okay. So now we're going to put in our physical address for the location. Say 123 Main Street. So you need to know how late they're open, when they open, when you can be there. So let's call this site 8 to 5, and let's say they don't want you there after a certain time, maybe 5 o'clock. So we're going to click that. Yes, there are limitations. We're going to create our site. Yes, we're sure. And now I don't want you to get hung up here waiting for this spinning thing to go away, because it's not going to. You're just going to say OK to acknowledge it, and then you'll move forward. All right. So now we're going to, you can see we've got this. We're going to add a building. Now you may have one building, you may have multiple buildings, you may have multiple floors. This tool is going to allow you to enter all that information. So let's say we start at a building that's referred to as the main building. We'll just call it main. Let's assume that there's 20 people that work here. And this is a single floor facility, offices. Now we also have different scenarios. We might be in warehouse, refinery, that type of thing. But let's just call it office. Now this right here, distance from MDF. So if the MDF is in this building, then we're going to call that 0. If we're at another building and the MDF is in the main building, then we're gonna come up with a rough estimate how far away those two buildings are from each other. Okay, so if trenching is required, is there a clear line of sight between the buildings for cabling? Now, this is going to be if we need to add cabling between buildings. Let's say we've got a building that has no infrastructure and they want to add, or maybe they just built it or something like that. So is there a clear line between the buildings? Yes. Just click that. Does the building share common wiring that connects to the other systems? Yes. Or no. So if you say check mark, then it's going to be yes. If you leave it blank, then it's going to be no. Determine if there are any immediate or planned changes to the site. So this is where you're going to talk to your site escort. Find out if there's any kind of remodel or new facilities being put in or something like that. And then you'll just describe that here. All right, so you'll need to take a picture of the front of the building. You can do this with your phone. You can use your laptop, whatever you want to. But you can, and you need to put that picture in right here. Okay, so we're going to hit add building and acknowledge that. Okay, again, the spinning thing really doesn't mean anything. Just hit OK and move on. Okay, so now we've got a building added. Now, what we don't have yet is we don't have rooms, demarcs, we don't have racks, we don't have anything, right? So we're going to click on this main, and you can see what you already put in here. We're going to click on main, and we're going to add a room. Now, when we add a room, we're not just adding any room. We're going to add pertinent rooms to infrastructure. So we're looking for rooms that have network equipment in them, racks. We're looking for the circuit, demarc, things like that, what you see here. So let's go ahead and add a room. Again, I don't have pictures to put in here, but you will as we develop this. And we're going to call this the we can just call it the MDF. But if there was a label on the room, if it said closet 3 or whatever that might be, then that's what you would put here. Again, we're assuming this is a single floor, and we're just going to add floor 1. Add 1, acknowledged. Okay. Now, we click on our MDF. Okay, there's the MDF we just added, which is the room. And we also know here that it's on floor 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a rack. Go to the rack, preferably that has the circuit connected to it, the main rack. All right. So we're hoping we're going to have labels on all these racks in these rooms, which may or may not be true. Look for them. So if we have a rack, let's call this rack 1. We're going to tell if this rack is 2 or 4 posts. Okay. And then in the number of inches, we're going to say how tall it is. So let's say it's, let's just call it 60 inches tall. And 24, how deep is it? I don't know, 18 inches. All right, now we're gonna start documenting what's in the rack. All right, so copper patch panels. There may or may not be copper patch panels. Let's say there's a couple of them. Height of these, let's call it 2U's. Number of cable guides. So we're looking to see how well these cables are routed through the rack. Is there adequate space for them to be installed nice and clean, a tight install? So let's say there's one on each side. Patch panels. Enter that. Say there's also 2. Now how many spaces are left open? Let's say this is fairly full, but there's some room. How much free space is located behind the rack? This is how much room is between the wall and the equipment, basically. Okay, so the back of the rack to the wall, or whatever may be behind it. What we're looking for here is to determine if there's room to put larger equipment in than it has, potentially. So let's say we have 3 feet. Any labeling on the power receptacles connected to the rack? Yes. Picture of the power receptacle connected to the rack. Install that there. So we're taking pictures of a lot of things. So make sure that you're getting these as you go so you don't have to go back. Picture of the entire rack. Now what I want to see in this picture is I want to see the entire rack. I want to see it from the floor to the top, from the left to the right. I want to see the whole thing. So make sure you get a good picture that doesn't allow for anything to be cut off when we go to look at that. Okay, UPS model. Number of available wall plugins and plugins in the wall. Okay, so when we say available plugins, we're looking to make sure that we have unutilized plugs to allow for expansion into the rack for more gear using more plugs than what we currently have. All right. Now, there may or may not be a UPS model available. So if there is no UPS, just put in none. Number of available power plugs in the wall. Let's say there's 2. All right, so we're going to add that. Say OK. Now you can see that within the MDF room that we created, we have 1 rack. So your first rack has been created. Say there's more racks in that room. Add those. Same way. Printers. Maybe there's a network printer in there. You can add the printer. So let's say we have a Ricoh printer. And it's a model who knows? If you can get the serial number, great. If you can't, it's not a big deal. The label on the printer would be fine if you can get that. Again, if you're having to spin it around, pull it away from the wall, and get intrusive, then we don't want to do that. So you're going to get that kind of information, labels and serial numbers as you can, and when you can't, then that's fine. Now, most printers I don't expect to find in the rack, but maybe you'll find something. You know, there's a place for you to put it. Location in the room. You might say northwest corner, or you might say next to the door, or you might say by rack 2. So there's any number of ways you can obviously put that in there. Hopefully there's a data jack with a label on it. If not, none. All right. Is this connected to a printer, or does it have a network cable running to it? That's pretty much as simple as I can put that. So, network cable, it is. Is IP of the printer static or DHCP assigned? You know, about the only thing you can do here is you can, you know, obviously if it's network, then this will apply. Printer test page. Figure out, you know, you can look it up based on the model and manufacturer, how to print a test page, and it should tell you what the IP is. And it may tell you if it's static or DHCP. Okay. So we add this printer. Yes, for sure. Yes, double sure. All right, so we've done that. You're just going to continue on adding all those things. Now, we also would like to add access points. So in your physical survey, you're going to walk the floor and you're going to look around looking for access points. So let's say we find an access point and we're going to call that a Cisco. And it may be, let's call it a 1242. You're not going to get a serial number off this. It would require you pulling it down to look at it. So does it have a name on it or not? It may. It may not. So yes, if it does. All right, rack U. You may find one in a rack, but probably not. It's not going to be the normal for these. NA. If it does have a label, what is it? It could be something as simple as that. Take a picture of it. Okay? We're going to add it once we're happy with that. Okay? Now we have an access point. Cabling. We want to know about the D mark. So, and the cabling as well. So we're looking for Cat 5 or less, anywhere that we can identify that. We want to know what kind of connectors are on the fiber. So what kind of fiber do we have here? Is there a copper backbone? So maybe they don't use fiber, maybe it's copper instead, running through the building between switches, or even between buildings. That's what you're going to be looking for. Maybe there's fiber. So if you got fiber, there you go. You got copper, there you go. How many cables connected are 5 or lower? Do not include Cat 5e. Cat 5e is acceptable. Cat 5 is not. Should be able to see that labeled on the cable. You may even have labels on the outlets that these are going to plug into, biscuit jacks or whatever. So, how many? How many do not meet the Cat 5e standard? Number of optic cables towards the network rooms. You count the cables. How many fibers? They may run between every switch. They may run just to a switch or two. You're going to count those. And you'll count these from the DMARC, from your main switches. Number of fibers for each previously listed cable. There you go. Get some pictures of the fiber. We want to know what they've got. So describe those as best you can. They have single mode or multi-mode. There it is. Number of optic cables between rooms. Available, that is. There you go. If you've got additional cables that are hanging there, looped up, not in use, just hanging there waiting for opportunity for expansion, then this where you're going to put this. Length of optic cable between rooms. Simply looking at the map and figuring how far these rooms are. You're not going to know the path that they used, so you're really coming up with an estimate. Number or type of optic connector on the patch panel, excuse me. There we go. We want to know what type of connectors we're using. We like to see the LC as much as possible, so we really need to know if there's something else in there. Okay, optic patch panel is positioned where? Where in the rack? Type of copper cables. There you go. Okay. Enter all that information in and enter it. So as we enter all these different things, we're building a picture. We've got a building, we've got a room, a floor, we've got a rack, the devices within the rack. As you can see, everything we've put in here has been in this rack. Okay. So if we want to add a room, we just do the same thing again, but we add a room. And I went backward on my page to get to this. So we can add a room if we want to, or let's say we're done in this building and we've got another building. This is multiple buildings. One may even have one floor and one may have 5 floors. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to just start over. You're going to add a building, and then you're going to follow the same process, identifying the contents of those buildings, and that's pretty much it. So when you've got all that in, then all you need to do is verify that you're happy that you've got all your pictures. The pictures look good, that all the information has been filled out for each of those device types. And check in with the service desk to make sure everybody's got what they need. And hopefully you're done. Thank you very much for joining me and watching this video. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions at all about how to use the tool, then please give us a call and we'll sort through it. Bye.